there will be a complete change in how the bureaucracy works. And it will have, not initially, but over time, a positive long-term impact on the entire economy. We have a pipeline of existing toxicity as a result of market conditions that has nothing to do with what the Fed's going to do or what Trump administration is going to do. That has to clear itself out of the system. That's not going to change. But what will change is that
Good afternoon, everybody. We're back with Jacobs PC at the booth. We have Jacob Fryman of Jacobs PC, partner in real estate transactions. And we're going to have a discussion about the big elephant in the room, okay? The GOP, the Trump administration won. So what does that really mean for commercial real estate? Tell us, Jacob.
Well, firstly, I don't think anybody has to worry about whether the 1031 credit will be off the table.
Exactly right.
I also believe that there was a bill introduced that didn't get passed in a Democratic controlled House, where there was going to be forgiveness of debt income liability. I have a sense that'll come back, and I just think this is going to be great for business.
Please. And I'll tell you something else. That housing resolution that you were discussing is 55088. Our firm was actually the first firm that was discussing forgiveness of debt. Tell the people at home and those that are listening, what does that mean if that law is passed? That's a very, very important law for those that are considering losses to their commercial real estate. Tell us about that.
If you are in the unfortunate situation that you owe more money than your property is worth, which in today's market is a pretty common event, and you either have a foreclosure sale or a short sale or some other arrangement where a deed in lieu is going back to the lender, then you technically have an income liability for the amount of debt that was forgiven. So if you have a $100 million loan, but it only generates $80 million, you could end up with a $20 million income tax, phantom income liability, and have no income, obviously, and have to pay the tax on it. So because the market is so upside down as a result of what's happened in inflation, Congress has introduced legislation that would sunset that provision of the tax code for a period of, I don't recall, 18 months, a year, so that we can get this through the blocks.
Understanding this correctly, before this housing resolution is passed, you have phantom income and you have to pay taxes on it if it's passed, because it's still in the House.
Right.
And with the Republican administration, we're saying that it's going to come back in. So what is that going to do for those that are actually or have to pay taxes?
Well, so that's going to be, that'll help just sort of get the mess that we're dealing with through the system. The other stuff that we should be thinking about is that there's going to be a tax cut. And a tax cut is always good for real estate because it will generate more available money to invest in things that is becoming more and more difficult to invest in, housing, etc.
Do you believe that the loosening of regulations, which I think the Republican administration...
That's going to be the number one thing they're going to do. We will see at least $2 trillion of federal regulation off the table within the first 30 days of the administration.
So we're a law firm. We're also an information firm. What is that going to do with the litigation that we have with Jacobs PC today? The commercial litigation, the bankruptcy litigation, the partnership disputes. How is the Trump administration going to affect that, if anything?
Well, I'm not sure it's going to affect the private disputes between partners, investors, lenders, or institutions, but there will be a complete change in how the bureaucracy works. And it will have, not initially, but over time, a positive long-term impact on the entire economy.
Are you sensing it that it's going to be more dynamic and business decisions are going to be made quicker, or litigation is going to be coming to a stall? What, in your opinion?
We have a pipeline of existing toxicity as a result of market conditions that has nothing to do with what the Fed's going to do or what Trump administration is going to do. That has to clear itself out of the system. That's not going to change. But what will change is that tomorrow we'll be able to drill oil. We'll be able to get permits for development of infrastructure, of real estate. There will be a loosening of environmental regulations. I can see that, in his last administration, we have changes, significant changes in what is a flood zone and what is a federal flood zone and how do you deal with it. And the Clean Water Act was pretty much emasculated. And so between that and the Chevron decision from the Supreme Court, I anticipate that we're going to see a tremendous loosening of the regulatory environment that has made construction so impossibly costly and real estate so expensive.
Well, last question. Let's talk about specifically what it is that you do at Jacobs TC. Tell us, please.
I fix problems.
Well, what specific types of problems?
I think of myself as the guy who turns crap into lemonade.
Excellent. And is that with modifications? That with short pays? What is it that you do?
Whether you're a lender or a borrower, if you have an underwater transaction, you have an underwater asset, and you have to strategize through a resolution that will be least negatively impactful on either the borrower or the lender, we're the guys that can help you figure it out.
And can you give us an example, a small anecdote about how you exactly did that in one situation?
It depends on, every case is different, depends on the goals of the client. We listen to what is it that the client needs and wants, and then we undertake our review of loan documents, facts, historical events, and then determine whether within the confines of the client's desired goals, we can articulate a strategy, whether it includes litigation or not, whether it includes some sort of debt relief, or whether it's just negotiation. Or sometimes we just have to poke someone in the eye to get their attention.
Exactly. And I think the answers do exist in documentation, as you said, but it also exists in the leverage that you can create.
But the important thing is, it's not like there's a rule book for this. And what makes Jacobs TC so different is lawyers are lawyers and accountants are accountants. But when you get lawyers who are also developers and who for 40 years have both practiced law and developed real estate and run public real estate investor trusts, now you have a lawyer who not only understands the law, but understands the practical reality of the client's needs and can maneuver within that confine. That's a unique value add. One more thing and then I'm done. The other side of that coin is that typically you go to a lawyer on a transaction to deal with the paperwork, to deal with the structuring, deal with the law and the legal stuff. And we do that too. But we also help you with introduction to capital sources, introduction to architectural engineering, expediters, how to deal with land use and zoning. And we have the ability of helping you get your transaction, not just from the legal perspective, but from the business and the real estate perspective to the finish.
I mean, macro concepts like getting liquidity, dealing with vendors is very, very important when finishing your work, especially if you're modifying your loans. I appreciate you very much, Jacob, and we'll talk again. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.